What is going on, investors? Hopefully you guys are having a great day out there. That is right. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Friday. It's Black Friday here on the Investor Channel, where every Friday we recap all the major news and the technicals from all the major FAANG stocks, Microsoft and NVIDIA tossed in there as well. We don't waste time on this show, and we're going to kick things off like we always do with Meta. I got my Mark Zuckerberg hoodie on. I'm ready to go. Okay, here we go. Facebook started the week at about 340, end of the week down, big down day on the stock market today. Wouldn't put a lot of stock into it. We've got the weekend. We've got some time to kind of work things out, kind of digest the news. Also, like, everybody took the day off from trading stocks. So any pressure either up or down was going to create a big move. And we saw really negative headlines on the virus today. And so that sent stocks lower. Could create some buying opportunities. We'll talk about it from a technical perspective, as we always do. Now, Meta is delaying their messaging encryption plan until about 2023. Right now, the company offers end-to-end encryption on its WhatsApp, but its Facebook and Messenger and Instagram apps do not have end-to-end encryptions. They do say, though, that even with end-to-end encryption, the company can provide critical information to authorities. So don't just think if you've got end-to-end encryption that it shields you from the law, so to speak. Now, moving on to Apple. Started the big news week for Apple and particularly Tesla today. So we started the week at 158 with Apple. It ballooned to all-time highs. It looks so good on the chart when we finally broke to all-time highs with Apple, up over $165 per share, but we did pull back to 156, key technical level. We'll talk about that here in a second. Now, in terms of Apple, this crossed literally right as I was preparing for the show. Apple may have its AR, which stands for Augmented Reality Headset, for sale by late 2022. Now, this is according to the site Mac Rumors, and I pulled that up because they had a kind of a cool photo of it. I guess this is kind of a mock-up, an AR device. This is kind of how they look. They look like ski goggles, basically. And we'll see if Apple is able to break into this space, okay? Big push by all these tech companies, obviously, with Facebook changing its name, but obviously Apple wants to get in there too. Microsoft, Google, and of course, Amazon as well. Pretty much all these companies, and probably at the lead position out of all these companies, believe it or not, is probably NVIDIA with their platforms on this type of technology. Talk about this a lot on this show in the coming years ahead. Now, Apple's Black Friday iPhone sales could surpass 10 million units. I thought that was a lot. I wanted to get some context on this, so I pulled it up. Another headline that over in China, just over the last month, the company has shipped 10.8 million iPhones in the country, and historically, Apple has sold about 6 million units in a month in China. The company Apple is seeing massive demand for their iPhone. I think they're going to have an absolutely fantastic quarter, and I think you're going to see margins. They're going to probably expand over at Apple because of the cost cutting they're doing with their chips. Okay, they're lining up all their chips. They're designing their own silicon. They don't have to pay out. They do have to pay some royalties to Qualcomm and others, but they're not using Intel chips anymore, and they never really have in their phones. And so we'll see, but I think this is all lining up really positively for Apple's earnings, which I think should be maybe about 60 days away or so. Apple sues an Israeli company known for hacking and spying software. Don't know how well and how successful this will go, but apparently this company has technology or created hacking capabilities capable of hacking the iPhone without having to click on a link or respond to some kind of phishing scam. So it's a very serious issue for Apple, and they're taking legal matters into their own hand. I think they probably have to do a lot more to that to stop those types of companies. Now, Amazon started the week at $3,738. Thought this one could break up. It did not. Pulled back to about that $3,500 level. Now, big unions are urging the FTC to reject Amazon's $8.5 billion MGM. And this is not MGM Grand. This is not the Aria or now the Cosmopolitan, man. Use your M Life points over there. Well, no, this is the MGM Studios, which was completely separate from that company. They might have been combined at one time. time. Now, this includes James Bond. It includes, ironically enough, The Apprentice, which was former President Trump's very successful show, I believe is on NBC. It's a huge library of shows. In fact, it's more than 55,000 titles. In comparison, Netflix has a library of about 20,000. So big unions, the Service Employees International Union, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, Communication Workers of America, and the United Farm Workers stepping in there and saying they urge the FTC to not grant this. Now, it's looking like even if we get a decision on this, it's going to be a long ways off, okay? FTC opened a thorough investigation in July on this deal, meaning that we're probably a ways off. Amazon's going to have to throw some money. It's a critical election year, so I'm sure Amazon will have plenty of chances to grease the politicians that can influence that acquisition. Now, HubSpot gains after a report of Amazon internally pitching buying the company. So apparently AWS, which is the cloud computing arm of Amazon, so they have a marketing software and they just think it's too difficult to use. And they recommended buying a peer, which is this HubSpot stock. Say that a couple times fast on Friday after I had a few drinks on Thursday. Over the last year, the stock's up 121%. Shares are at $803 per share. But what I noticed, this is like nearly a $40 billion company. I could see why Amazon was like, well, we got to pump the brakes. That's not a minor acquisition at all. Probably would be maybe the largest one Amazon ever made. Be interesting to see what comes of that. Now, moving on to NVIDIA, start of the week at 320, end of the week flat at 315. That's not bad. After the epic move that we've had on this stock, the fact that it's holding, okay, Tesla wasn't able to hold its highs. Apple broke out this week, was not able to hold its high. Facebook, we've seen break out, not been able to hold its high. Microsoft pulled back just a little bit. The fact this thing is trading sideways, we'll talk about that from a technical perspective here in a minute. Now, some negative news. The UK ministers don't believe the ARM sale to NVIDIA will happen. So NVIDIA agreed to buy this company from SoftBank. Off the top of my head, I think it's a $40 billion deal. It's an absolute... I can see from a regulatory perspective why they would not want this. On top of that, I believe ARM is based in the UK. There's people there that want the company to be listed in London because it would be a $40 billion company on the London Stock Exchange would be one of the larger companies. And so this is a key company to that region of the world. And NVIDIA wants to come in and scoop it. Now, us as NVIDIA shareholders, we want this. We want this bad. But if it doesn't happen, it's not necessarily that bad of a thing. When you look at what NVIDIA is doing and what they have in the pipeline, this would kind of lock in a lot of their technology and would give them access to even more customers because ARM is basically just licensing its technology to like Apple and pretty much any chip maker out there. I think in Microsoft as well. Everybody's using ARM, and every smartphone, I think it uses, or most of them use some version of some kind of ARM technology. It would give NVIDIA a even wider customer base and a really rich customer base. But even if it doesn't happen, the positive is now the $40 billion doesn't hit the balance sheet, doesn't hit the dilution of the stock, and those types of things. UK antitrust, more on this ARM deal. Regulator speaks weekly. We're talking weekly with the FTCs on NVIDIA's planned ARM purchase. So Lena Khan, who is the head of the FTC here in the United States, she is somewhat I don't want to use the word controversial. I would use the word that big tech doesn't like her because she's published a lot of opinion pieces on how those companies that we talk about each week here on the show, that they should be broken up. And I don't want to categorize that as controversial. That's her opinion. A lot of people will agree with her. And in some cases, maybe I agree with her. I don't know. But in this case, she is talking with the UK regulators every week on this planned purchase. That's why I think it'll be coordinated. Okay. The UK, when we talked about this like a few weeks ago on the show, when we talked about this acquisition, that the UK, I think, has until about mid-March, March 15th for a deadline. And we talked about how I actually think the UK will go first, and whatever they decide, China, United States, whoever else wants to regulate this deal will step in at that point. And that's why I think the UK antitrust regulators is speaking weekly with the FTC here in the United States. They're going to coordinate this so they're all on the same page, okay? They want to get max value out of NVIDIA. If they allow something like this goes through, they want to get the most for it because they know this is pretty controversial. And again, me as a shareholder, I want it to go through, but I can understand if regulators do take issue with this deal, it would absolutely just guarantee stone cold guarantee and guarantee as close as you can get on the stock market. Nothing is a guarantee, but this was as close to a stone cold lock guarantee, lock up NVIDIA for the next, I don't know, probably the next decade, maybe even 2 decades when it came to chip technology. Moving on to Google, start of the week higher at 3,000 and end of the week lower. Actually broke out of that secondary channel that we identified last week. We're now at about 28.50 on this one. Take a look at that from a technical perspective because there wasn't a whole lot of news out of Google this week. Now, moving on to Microsoft, started much higher, 343. We were not able to hold that level up there. Now we're down to about 330 on Microsoft. Talk about that from a technical perspective. The CEO, Satya Nadella, disclosed that he sold about 839,000 shares. That's got to be a ton of money. Okay, and look, we're seeing it. Elon Musk has been selling. Tim Cook, I think, might have done some selling. So we're seeing these executives. It's towards the end of the year. My guess is if you're on these guys' Christmas list, you're probably expecting something pretty sweet considering they're the CEO of one of the biggest companies or the biggest company in the world. My guess is this guy's got to fork over some big time stuff when he gives out his gifts. These guys deserve the money and we'll give it to them. Moving on to Tesla. It started the week at $1,096. End of the week at $1,081. I took delivery of my Model 3 today. We'll talk about that here in a second in terms of pricing because there was some interesting stuff that's come out recently about pricing on these Tesla. I tell you what, that car's fun to drive. Okay. I mean, it is really, really fun to drive. So Tesla said to turn down EU's $1.1 billion in subsidies for a German battery factory. This goes along with other things that Elon Musk said on Twitter, I believe, that's saying that he wants all subsidies to close, but also in the oil and gas as well. Now, this is because there's been many delays in the project. So it basically violated the terms of these subsidies. So Tesla no longer qualifies for those. He continued on Twitter pushing for subsidy elimination. Now, it's interesting. He does have his detractors, Senator Bernie Sanders and Robert Murray, who is a coal tycoon, have pointed out that Tesla has benefited greatly from subsidies. Okay. A lot of their profit, especially in the early days of the company, and a big bear case argument was that they made their profit or they wouldn't make any money if it wasn't for those subsidies. Now, that was true up until about the last year or so. Now the company has extraordinary margins on its cars, and we're now starting to see them expand. Okay, we love that. We love when we have a market-leading product. Okay, think about the iPhone, think about Microsoft Office, think about NVIDIA chips, think about Facebook, think about these companies, Google as well, market-dominating search engine. Well, you can start driving up margins and you can start driving higher prices. U.S. automakers are hoping that higher pricing in this environment stays. So I checked. So I have a SUV made by Mercedes. I checked to see if I could turn it in. Unfortunately, I'm leasing it, but unfortunately, I only owe about $50,000 on my lease, and the car's worth like $62,000. I've never seen this in my life. I want to keep the car, but if I could sell it for $62,000 and pocket $12,000, maybe after taxes closer to $5,000, I would do that all day in the week. I mean, we're seeing crazy price increases in the car market. And again, automakers hoping that it can stick. My guess, just like the housing market, just like any market, there's a limit to how high prices can get before you see pushback from consumers. We'll see if that materializes over the next quarter or two for these automakers. Now, Tesla is eyeing new investment in a Shanghai plant. After it nears capacity, they're going to invest about $188 million, which is not much, quite frankly, into the Shanghai plant to upgrade equipment. This is to help maybe make the capacity a little bit larger, make it more efficient, but they'll likely, I've heard that they'll probably open more plants in China since that is going so well. Now, Elon Musk sold another $1.5 billion worth of Tesla. Total to date, estimated, he sold 2 million shares, totaling roughly $10 billion. We talked about, I think, when these headlines broke, he has a $13 billion tax bill, but my guess, with the right CPAs and the right tax attorneys and maybe some donations to charity and other types of things that he can do, my guess is he can get this probably closer to that $10 billion. I mean, imagine writing a $10 billion check to the IRS in the state of California would just make me absolutely sick to my stomach. But when you sold your shares to get that 10 billion, probably a pretty nice situation to be in. Now, Tesla stocks rises as Elon Musk tweeted that the Model S Plaid will hit China around March. I love Elon Musk. I mean, he's totally changed the way companies have flowed information. This would have normally been put in a press release or done something. No, somebody asked him on Twitter after he tweeted Model S Plaid is sick with a bunch of Ks. And so he tweeted that, but then somebody asked him about, hey, when is it coming to China? And he just casually says probably around March. Okay, so that's actually pretty big news. China, obviously, look, the Model S Plaid, I think it's a really expensive car. I mean, we're talking 100, maybe even north of 100. It's north of 100,000. I don't think it's quite 200,000, but it's a very expensive car. Okay, obviously I can't afford one, not necessarily right at the moment, and so it's not necessarily a car for me. But there is a market for this car. My guess is the margin on this car is really, really good too. Okay. And so you don't have to sell a ton of them to really, really drive prices. Also, it's one of those cars, every car maker, I think every great car maker, especially, I think of like Mercedes because it's a brand I really like. Mercedes has really, really top tier models, but then they go all the way down to that $40,000 level. I like what Tesla is doing. They have a nice wide range, okay, where they have really, really high end cars, but then they have like the entry level Model 3, which I wanted to talk about here. And they are raising the price on this car tremendously. Okay, this is right. I just loaded this website today, and this is the Model 3. And the only reason why I bring this up is this is the exact car I bought. And right now, before taxes, before fees, before everything, and believe me, out here in California, there's a lot of fees. You're starting at $45,000. Okay, after fees, you're going to be well north of $50,000 on this car. I just bought this car all in for $45,000. I think my base price was $38,000, I think, and that could include some incentives. There's a $750 credit out here in California, but they are driving the prices up on this car, okay? And I had to wait 2 months, and my guess is you can actually come to the Tesla, here it is, February 22nd, so you ain't gonna get this car for like 2 months. Okay, and you're paying way more. And I'm talking, I just reserved mine not that long ago. It was maybe 2 or 3 months ago. So the price just keeps elevating. We'll see if Tesla is able to keep doing this. Okay, this is a new model. It has some smaller features upgraded over the previous year, and I think even some new battery technologies that could be driving the more and more people willing to take delivery on them. Because the other thing that people do with Teslas is if you want one, the smart thing is to just reserve one for the $250 or whatever it costs to reserve. And then if you're not ready or you want to wait, maybe there's some features for the Tesla that are coming down the road, you can just push off your delivery. But what you do is you lock in your price today. And so with this price, I don't know if I'd necessarily want to do this. My guess is this is basically an all-time high price on the Model 3. But if we see increasing demand for these cars, look, a used one sells for about this price. This is why, one of the reasons why I bought the car. They hold their value tremendously, and I think Tesla can charge more. And sure enough, a couple weeks later, they raised the price. Now the base price, it was my all-in price, and we're talking about just 2 months ago. We'll see if that is able to continue for all car makers, but particularly Tesla as well. Now, moving on to the technical segment of the show, start things off with Facebook. I don't think they've officially changed their name. I think that's sometime in December. We'll start trying to refer to them as Meta, but we've basically just hit an area of resistance. We talked about this on last week's show. We were actually over this level, and we were looking for probably a walk up here. We thought that was possible, or we thought we were going to break down. And look, nobody tunes into this show saying, hey, the stock's going to go up or the stock's going to go down. Obviously, I mean, your 4-year-old could tell you that, right? Okay. But when you're at a level like this is where you kind of monitor it. Okay. And we did get rejected below 340. We are still in what I would call a very, very temporary uptrend. Okay. So we've made a low here, higher low. This is now likely a higher low unless we break below it. If we break below below about 327, which I'm talking like, that's like $3-4 under where the stock is right now. So on Monday or Tuesday next week, you break below about 328, 327 on this one. Well, I think you could retest 315, and that could bring back in 300, which is the price I'm kind of holding out for. Although I'd probably, if next week we hit 310 on a lot of this negative news that we're getting, I probably might step in there as well. We'll see if that materializes. At least have a plan, okay? It doesn't have to be that you go through with these plans, but this is our plan with Facebook, right? Okay, we're gonna watch and see if this one pulls back next week. Moving on to Apple, this one broke out. We talked about, we're talking about this for weeks, okay? Where if we got above 157, we were gonna explode, and that's exactly what we did. Just very briefly, this stock traded as high as $165 per share, but it has pulled back, and it's pulled back all the way back to our 157, right on the dot, basically. And look, this is not that uncommon, okay? I just had Meta up, okay? When Meta broke to all-time highs, it backtested. Broke again to highs, backtested, okay? Not at all uncommon. So with Apple, I'm not super concerned. It will be, I wouldn't say concerning, but we will know that this was just a very, very, very short-term breakout. If we break below next week, I would say about 156 on this stock. So another $1 off of this stock, and then all of a sudden, I think it could potentially bring us back down to about 150. That could be a buying opportunity for Apple. Now, moving on to Amazon, just has not been able to get above $3,765. I wave my hands because we're estimating the price on this one. Now, just like Facebook, we are in a shorter term uptrend on this one, okay? Low, higher, low, higher, low. Just because the stock has pulled back doesn't mean that the trend is broken. Now, we do not want to see, at least in the shorter term, this stock get below about 34.60 or so. You get below that, my guess is you're probably retesting $3,300 test on Amazon. It's literally, no, I wouldn't say literally, but it's very close to the middle of the trading range that we have identified now. I would say the bottom of this range is right at about 3,000, and the top are these all-time highs, or basically this double top that we made. And I also want to make sure this is not necessarily a double top, okay? And it might not be. What we want to see, the bull case on Amazon, if you just want to see your Amazon shares go up, you need to break above this 37.70 and then potentially do what Apple did, okay? Put a big couple candles up here, might only last a day or two, but it could come back and back test. We're seeing that right now, very close to Microsoft. We're seeing it with Tesla. We've seen it with Facebook. We potentially might see it with Apple even more so next week. So that's what we're looking for with Amazon. Moving on to NVIDIA. This one's still looking great. Okay, so we've made a huge move. Gap traded sideways, then we gapped up again, and now we're just consolidating sideways again. I tell you what, if I was at a casino, and I hate comparing the stock market to casino, so I'm just using an analogy here, but if it was red or black for me, and I had a stack of chips in my hand, red or black, and it's NVIDIA, up or down, I'm betting up, okay? Because we have just, gone up, sideways, no big deal, up again, sideways, no big deal, okay? And so we're looking for a break, really, I would say above 335, probably technically, for this to really prove that we're still rip-roaring to the upside, need to get above about 350 on this one. Moving on to Google, this one's looking weird, man. Okay, so we made this big upward channel, broke it. That's technically means that the trend is over, but what you often do when you break, especially a trend that's been locked in this step for a long, long time. Okay, it takes a while for them to change the computer algorithms and all that stuff that trades a lot of these stocks. Well, it tends to backtest the bottom of the channel. We saw that, and we've just been I've been kind of just hands off on Google. I've been anticipating this one to keep working down, and this trend line right here, this secondary channel, not necessarily something that you need to have on here, but I think from a visual perspective, it's showing you what's gone on. We had a big upward channel, broke it, upward channel, now we broke it again, okay? What I would anticipate with Google is we go sideways, okay? Maybe the top of the range is now up here at $3,000 per share, and we trade in a box, I think, as low as maybe 2,700 up to 3,000. I don't think that would be a bad thing. I know it's great to open up your statement every month and see that your Google shares have constantly gone up over the last year, but at some point the stock's got to take a breath. And the best thing, in my opinion, from a performance standpoint, is just have the stock go sideways. Not going to hurt your portfolio performance at all. Now, from a buying perspective, we want to get more. Yeah, we want to see this thing crash and burn, okay? And you're looking for a break below $2,700 on this one, which I guess is not out of the question. We're sitting at about 2840 right now. So if the whole markets keep pulling back, well, yeah, you've got some buying opportunities down here. If you break this 27, then you're just letting it fall, okay? Because just like we wait for those moments to break to all-time highs, we talk about with NVIDIA, with Apple, with Amazon, you break to these all-time highs, well, look, the sky's the limit, honestly, because there's never been any sellers of the stock up here, okay? And retail tends to pour in towards the top, okay? And it can kind of boost this momentum. Well, the same thing a little bit on the way down, okay? Retail starts to panic and they get out of the shares, okay? And then all of a sudden we can make a big break. So we're looking not necessarily for that to happen with Google. I'm just giving you some scenarios just because right now, again, if I were to place a bet on the likely scenario, I think we flag sideways between about 27 and 3,000 on Google. Moving on to Microsoft, looks relatively similar to NVIDIA, but we have pulled back quite a bit from the highs. So this stock kind of broke up to highs up to about $350 per share, but now we're trading much closer to 330. This 330 level actually is a level, okay? And it's a short one and doesn't have a lot. I mean, it's like on sand, okay? We're not on concrete here. So very, very, very shaky ground, okay? You break 330 on Microsoft, I think we could start looking at stocks like Facebook, which broke to all-time highs and then all of a sudden pulled back, okay? Same thing when we're looking at Apple the other day. Broke to all-time highs, has pulled back, okay? Microsoft could be in that same vein, and we'll pull up the chart of Tesla here in a second. That's probably even a better comparison, is that we go all the way to highs and then we retrace somewhere back down in here, okay? Maybe not all the way back down. All the way back down would be at about $305 per share. That's a good $25 from where the stock is right now. That's very cool. Not quite 10%, but it would be quite a move on Microsoft. You get that opportunity, I think you got to take it. We do have a small gap down here. That's why if Microsoft were to break 330, boy, this little gap down here would be a magnet to the price. That would get you to about 312, 315 on this stock. That would be a pretty good buying opportunity probably as well when it came to Microsoft. Now on the bullish side, like if we think this thing's going to go up, we've got to get back up above 340 on this one. More specifically, we got to get back up to 350, but it doesn't have to happen very quickly. As long as, just like NVIDIA, if we can just hang out at this area, that is fine. When a stock makes a big move, I mean, this stock back in October was 285, and then like 2 days ago, it was at 350. I mean, that's a monster move. Okay, you got to take a breath at some point. You know, it's like your Tesla outside. You know, you could floor it for a while, but then you got to charge it up a little bit. That's kind of what the stock is doing. It's taking its charge. We'll see how much it can let it run if it happens to move to the upside. Here is our Tesla chart, and we've seen it's done kind of the move that we thought. It was going to get up here to all-time highs and pull back at some point. Now, the stock in the shorter term, very, very shorter term, is still, this is a low. This is another grouping of lows. And right now at 1084 on this stock, another group of lows. Technically, I would not be concerned really on this stock in the shorter term. Now, when I mean concerned, maybe not the best term for the group of investors that watch this type of show. We're looking to probably acquire shares of this. So I would get excited, more specifically, we get below $1,000 on this one. Or if you want to come in here and step in at $1,000, not necessarily the worst spot. Don't necessarily think it might be the best spot, but it will have confirmed that maybe we break through these lows here. If we can break below 1,000, that is when you get excited with Tesla, because just like with Microsoft, there's a little tiny gap on this chart and it's sitting below 950. You get below 950 on this one. We're back testing all the way back to the highs at 900. That is when you push those MGM grand chips into the middle. When you get a pullback like this on a stock like this, that is driving prices up, that has a market leading position. Look, over the last weekend, some of you done some traveling. How many Rivian cars did you see? How many Lucid Air cars did you see? Forget them, okay? Now, I'm not trying to hate on them, okay? But how many EVs from Ford and GM and Honda and Toyota do you see? How many from Mercedes or Audi or Lexus? How many full-blown EVs did you see driving around? My guess is a number very close to zero, okay? I've been driving around all week. I can't tell you, I mean, my head would explode if I told you how many. Obviously, out here in California, it's kind of the capital of Teslas. It's very, very common to see one. It's very, I mean, I would say at least 4 or 5 people on my block have at least one of them. Very easy car to see out here in California. And it's very hard to find any EV of any other car maker. This is a gold medal winning stock. You get a pullback back to the previous highs. Yeah, you better believe it. That's a buying opportunity. Hopefully you guys had a great week out there. We'll be back again with more videos. I just got to thank all you guys again. 100,000 subscribers. I'm so pumped up about this channel. I got super cool things that I've got planned. I got a room right to the right of me in my office. I'm going to just spend a bunch of money and make it look super cool. We're going to start recording videos up there, bring you some new content and things like that. And I wouldn't have done any of that without all of your support. Just want to say how thankful I am for all of you. I hope all of you had a wonderful Thanksgiving with you and your families, and coming up into these holidays as well. My sincerest hope is that you have a great holiday, great healthy holiday as well. Hopefully you guys had a great week. That is about it for today. Good luck with your investments.